This is Patriots Playbook.
The legend.
We really don't get much of a chance just to shoot the bleep, do we? So it infuriates the hell out of me. Ask Miss Robin. She'll tell you. I'm the one that's going, God, bleep, blah, 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 blah. You know, letting it fly. And she's like, shh, the neighbors will hear. I walk in the door. He could not get out of here fast enough. He didn't even look at me. Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, Ev.
Now, here's your host of Patriots Playbook, John Rook.
I forgot what context that was in.
I heard about this, John. I heard about this.
Come on, you did not.
I did. I got upstairs, and I'm going to throw him right under the bus. Our webmaster, Chris Ferreira, came up to me, and he said, John Rook he's got a bone to pick with you.
Oh,
he's not happy.
That was the cut. Now I remember.
He's not happy. And I just want to say that I sincerely apologize.
No. Yes, you do. Okay. By God, yes, you do. You need to apologize.
Press conferences to go to, so
Yeah,
I jetted out of here.
I know.
But everybody was telling me about how you
Rook was upset?
Yeah, that you're
because you
mad
walked
at me
out
now.
on him. You walked out on me.
I hope we're still
You turned right around. He walked out the door. You didn't even acknowledge my presence. You're just like, I got to get out of here before Rook says, oh, please, can you give me 15 minutes?
Oh, I always have 15 minutes for you. You know that.
Well, you better have 30.
I have an hour if you want. Now I gotta make up for last week. So we'll just do.
Oh, it's all good, Ev. It's all good. You know me. I like to have fun at your expense and everybody else's expense, too, for that matter. Including my own, by the way. Including my own. Because I came into today thinking, if I have to deal with Mac versus Bailey again this week, I just don't know if I have the breath left.
Well, I don't know if you don't have to deal with it because it's still a little bit ambiguous, but we were just talking about it on PU. I was out at practice, and it was the Bailey Zappi show.
Getting the reps, yeah.
Yeah, and
Malik Cunningham's out there, too, getting reps, right?
Yep, and I think that it's we're at this point, and we have famously argued on this show about Mac Jones versus Bailey Zappi. one of our all-time great radio moments.
Yes, it was
Bailey Zappi versus Mac Jones last year.
Zappi.
You would appreciate this out of all people because you know how hard against Bailey Zappi I was last year.
You were. You totally, yeah. Almost like he was playing for the Jets or something.
I am at the point now where I am camp Bailey Zappi. And I just want to make it 100% clear. 100% clear. It's based off of two specific things. One, I will admit that I would like to see what it looks like for Zappi when he is the starter for the whole week. Like, what's it like if you give him practice reps Wednesday through Friday? It's his game plan. It's his play sheet. It's a plan catered around Bailey Zappi, and he's not coming into the middle of a football game like he has all season long. What does it look like? And when I say that, I have no inclinations whatsoever that he's going to look like a franchise quarterback. Nobody is saying that. But for the Patriots, I do wonder if he can prove in the next 6 weeks of the season that he is a capable NFL backup quarterback, and that way there next year in the draft, you're not looking for two quarterbacks, you're really just looking for one, right? And I think that that's the biggest thing that you have to take away from this. It has to happen. With the way Mac Jones has played, he has to be benched.
We know Mac is shot. He's broken. And we've talked about this now for several weeks this year. We think he's been broken pretty much since before midseason.
Yeah.
And we can lie fault wherever you want to lie fault. It's clearly Mac has to own some of it because it's still his performance. But at the same time, there are multiple factors involved here. And I don't know if we'll even get to another of those factors today, but we all know there are multiple factors involved here. And in my particular viewpoint, we've always on this show tried to take a little bit more of a longer-term view. So I can appreciate at least your immediate 180-degree turn from this time a year ago when you were literally lambasting me for thinking about Bailey. And, of course, I only did that only because you have a great blue vein right down the middle of your forehead, and I just wanted to see it pop. So, but that part of it, besides that, I just – when you compare the two based on what we knew at the time, to their level of talent. There was nothing to compare Bailey Zappi to. He was fresh out of college. And Mack had a good rookie year. He had a crappy last year. We know that, and he obviously was what he was at Alabama to be a first-round draft pick. So when you look at them, based on their height, their weight, their trait, their athleticism, everything, I mean, Mack had it all over. And for anybody to even consider Bailey Zappi being in the same category was ridiculous, and told me that, honestly, you don't know what you're looking at when you're watching a football game. You don't know. Now, there are many different factors that swing into this equation now, as we all know. Mack is beaten and broken. He reminds me, I think the best analogy that I can come up with is Mack reminds me of Ken Norton as a heavyweight boxer. He's just beat all to hell.
Yeah.
Okay? And he had nothing left in the tank at the end of his tenure, at the end of his career. And Jiminy Christmas, this is the third year of his professional career. And I don't see anything in this guy. And I honestly believe, and this is what I was prepared to say today, and so I'll go ahead and follow it up, but I honestly believe he benefits himself personally by sitting out.
Yeah.
I don't think this is an issue that you can work through. You want to get him to a sports psychologist. You want to get him to a quarterback guru. You want to sit him down with TB12 himself. Whatever. But he needs time to sort of absorb what he's gone through and recover from what he's gone through, not just physically, but especially mentally.
Yeah.
And we have to understand that you're right. Where Bailey Zappi's concerned, this is a stopgap measure. Let's see what the Patriots have in him, and can he do it with a complete full week of practice and the backing of the offense, such as it is. Because honestly, this last Sunday against the Giants, I have not felt this way about a New England Patriots team in 33 seasons, since 1990. When you knew they had no hope and no prayer of moving the ball and much less winning a football game.
Yeah.
So this is unprecedented territory for many of us in this audience today, in your lifetime just about, because I mean, we've never gone through this with Bill Belichick. Even in his first year when they were 5-11, we didn't go through this kind of nadir. We didn't go through this.
Yeah.
Nobody's gone through this. So we're in uncharted waters here.
Yeah.
So nobody knows how to act or even react. We react, blah, blah, blah. He sucks, he blows, whatever. That's just cannon fodder. That's just bloviating. If you're really going to look at this from a big picture point of view, the fact of the matter is right, it's getting worse. We may not yet have hit bottom on this team. Bottom on this team, I think, right now would be 2-15. And then you can pretty much say, okay, if you got the number one draft pick, you're at the bottom. But at the same time, I just saw a poll today where I think ESPN Stats and Info released that the Patriots right now have a 26% chance of either the first or the second pick in the draft in April, which is pretty good odds. 1 in 4 chance of getting one of those top 2 picks. And I know we're looking way ahead of it. But I'm thinking big picture. And so in terms of big picture and trying to stay big picture, in terms of big picture, you do need to see what you have. He does need to operate with whatever your full deck is, because you kind of know what you have with Mack, and I think I'd even just remove Mack from the equation for a while. Is Bailey Zappi worth keeping? Is Bailey Zappi good enough to where we could go out and maybe pick up a free agent veteran in the offseason if we don't get the drafted quarterback that we really identify as the guy that can be the next guy? And hey, remember, they thought they had him with Mac Jones 3 years ago, and it turned out not having him. So are we going to go through this drill in another 3 years? Don't know. So we can only operate in the here and now.
Yeah.
And the here and now is, all right, Bailey's up. Now, one more thing I'm going to add to that.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing on local radio around here today, every talk show just about touching on the fact that, Bill's going to take us through this garbage every week, not telling us who the starter is. Rex Ryan going off Rex is just butthurt because Bill whipped his butt, 10 times to Sunday every week when he was a coach. So I take nothing that Rex Ryan says. I don't credit any of it. I take it all with a grain of salt. The issue here is overall, the Patriots and Bill Belichick are going to do exactly as they've always said, and they should. It's not playing games, releasing the starter because we're trying to play some sleight of hand of the opponent or whatever. That's not what it is. But if you're going to stay true to what you've always said, and I believe Bill does that, okay? If he does nothing else, he stays true to what his beliefs are, correct?
most of the time.
Most of the time, okay? Then it's a week-to-week process, and the guy who performs better in practice is going to get the start, and it's going to happen every stinking week for the rest of this year. However, Mac may be removed from the process.
Yeah, I think that's, I guess, the only part that I would push back on a little bit is just because I think that it would be pretty hard. I'm venture to guess that Mac Jones probably outperforms Bailey Zappi in practice every single week. It has nothing to do with the fact that the whole thing that we would argue about last year about Mac being better and all this. I just think that that's probably what happens. It probably is, because in practice you're wearing a red non-contact jersey.
Yeah.
Nobody can touch you.
Yep.
There's no threat of the pass rush hitting you. There's
Right.
no threat. It's not a live game setting. A lot of these reps, we also have to remember, in practice is against the scout team defense. So you're going up against a lot of practice squad guys and guys at the bottom of the roster that are on the scout team. We're not talking about him going up against Josh Uche and Christian Barmore and the starting defense. So it probably looks okay at times in practice. And I think that that's the problem that they've run into, is that Wednesday through Friday, Mac gets the majority of the reps. Mac looks okay in practice. And then they get to the game on Sunday, and when it's live, that's when it unravels for Mac. What I look at with Bailey Zappi and with Mac at this point is that Mac Jones had a lot of really bad habits that seeped into his game last year. Footwork, throwing off his back foot, antsy in the pocket, all this kind of stuff. And then this year, the results didn't come, and the confidence went out the door. So now you have a guy that has no confidence, that has already regressed mechanically, and then that snowballs on you to being what he is now, which is just a totally broken quarterback.
Right.
I think we're at the point now with Mac Jones where he doesn't start another game as a New England Patriot. I think that he's done here. And
I think he could be, but again, I will reiterate that I believe that truly Bill will take this week to week. I think he'll sit him down for a while. I don't know how long a while is. Maybe the while is 6 weeks. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do think that Mac will have an opportunity in practice to get another shot. I think that he'll get another shot. They might determine that, I think we're good. We know now, but I still would be surprised if he doesn't get another shot somewhere.
I would say the only way to me that he starts another game for the Patriots is due to injury to Zappi.
Okay, maybe.
Other than that,
Maybe.
I don't think it happens unless Zappi goes out there on Sunday and is just god-awful. And I just can't imagine that it could be much worse. And I think my point about Mac and the sort of development of his broken status here is that when I watch Bailey Zappi play, there are clear-cut limitations to his game. But he's not mentally somebody that looks broken. He's not panicked. He's not sped up. He's not making horrible decisions with the football, throwing lob passes to linebackers over the middle of the field because he sees a blitz coming. Right?
Yep.
He's not making those god-awful types of decisions for the most part. I know he threw a bad interception against the Colts, but that was put into a situation that not a lot of guys are going to succeed in. Like, here's a game-winning drive to go win the game. You've been sitting on the bench all day long. Go win us the football game. Like, that doesn't really happen anytime, anywhere. Right? That was a really weird circumstance. Other than that, like, the interception he threw on Sunday against the Giants wasn't a Mac Jones level interception like we've seen Mac throw the last couple weeks. It was a really good play by Xavier McKinney. It was a really good safety, and he stared it down a little bit, and he probably telegraphed it a little bit, but at the end of the day, McKinney comes out of center field and jumps a crossing route and makes a play on the ball. It wasn't like Mac Jones's interception on a very similar concept where he's throwing into a team meeting for there's 3 Giants and 1 Patriot in the area. This was a different type of throw.
How many times did they throw into double and triple teams last week?
Yeah.
Holy crap. It seemed like every pass was at least doubled, if not tripled.
Well, I think that obviously that speaks to the talent at receiver and the,
Well,
and the design of the offense.
I'm just going to say the other, and Bill O'Brien, I think, fell on the sword a little bit this week, talking to the media, saying
As he
that,
should.
Yeah, and I think it was I think it was appropriate. I think he definitely should, because a lot of it, starts with him. But I think, and I know that this is probably going to come as a little bit of a surprise to a lot of people because of the nature of his belovedness around here. But Troy Brown's got to answer for this too.
Yep. I mean, I've been on Troy Brown for 2 years.
Yep.
I think at some point, to start with Bill O'Brien, the person that I'm the most disappointed dad in is O'Brien. Because with Mac, I already knew that it was probably a 50-50 proposition whether or not Mac Jones was going to recover from last year and go on to be what we thought he might be his rookie season.
Right.
With Bill O'Brien, I really thought that there would be a professional level of performance that he would bring to the table. And to this point, it still blows my mind that statistically they are a worse offense this year than they were last year.
It's hard. Number one, it's hard for me to fathom that. Number two, somewhere Matt Patricia's smiling.
Sure. I still stick to my guns on the fact that the design of the offense last year was incredibly flawed. I have to trust my gut on that, and I also have to trust what the players were telling us, throughout the season, that they didn't have answers to things. They were getting game planned by other defenses, and there was no left hand, right? There was no plan B. Yeah. They were watered down offensively. Like, everything was simplified and, borderline like high school, college level in terms of vanilla-ness on offense. Bill O'Brien's installation, and I know this for a fact because I've seen some of it on both coaches.
Good.
Bill O'Brien's installation this year compared to Matt Patricia's installation last year, and when I say installation, I mean the playbook that they installed in the offseason, was night and day. You're talking about, like Julian Edelman used to say, we're talking about calculus and like basic arithmetic, right? Like that's what we're talking about in terms of difference. But the level of schematic advances that they've made this year, it clearly has not translated to anything better offensively. And that, to me, I think is where the biggest, like, how the heck did we get here thing comes down to it.
I think everybody wants to know that. I really do.
Yeah.
I want to know how we got here. How did we get here? How did this go so far south so fast? And the only reasonable explanation I can come up with is just been an unbelievable confluence of several disasters happening almost simultaneously.
Yeah, I think what I've come back to, because I have to trust that Bill O'Brien is a better offensive coach than Matt Patricia. Like, you're talking about one guy that's been doing it.
I think within reason you could make that assessment.
Yeah,
yes.
There was one guy that's been doing it for 30 years, that's had success in the league, that's had success in college.
As opposed to a guy who was just forced to do it.
Right. I have to believe that.
Yeah.
So that tells you that the issues offensively are personnel-driven. They're player-driven. And I think Mac Jones's regression hit hard last year and has hit even harder this year. Ultimately, Jacoby Myers out, Juju Smith-Schuster in, turned out to be a massive downgrade. And I think when you look at Jacoby's year last year, if he was in a functional NFL offense, he's probably a 1,000-yard receiver.
Why was Juju such a massive downgrade? Because of his damaged goods?
Yes, I think he was damaged goods, and I think that his skill set is different enough from Jacoby's. Jacoby's a great route runner. Jacoby's a great separator. He's a great route runner. He's got great hands. Those types of things that I think Jacoby does really well, whereas Juju is more of that like catch and run, sturdy frame, bigger framed slot receiver. And I think that difference didn't translate well into this offense. Jacoby was the technician, and that's what this offense calls for, whereas Juju is more of a guy that just wants to catch and run the ball in space.
Yeah.
And they don't get him into space, and they don't get those opportunities. It's weird because the couple of times it's not all that dissimilar to Jonnu Smith. Like a couple of times that we've seen Juju not have to juke guys out, but just catch the ball on like a crossing route and be able to just run up the field. He's done okay on a lot of those carries. Like he's gained yards on a lot, but they're so few and far between. He doesn't get open.
They can't get him into space,
right?
And he has a hard time getting open because of his injury.
Right. He doesn't get open on his own. He can't run her out, break down, make a cut, get open on his own. Jacoby could do that. And I think that was probably the biggest thing. So it's got to be personnel driven. That's the way that I feel about it. But in general, Bill O'Brien, I think we look at him as well. And on top of the fact that they could have a new head coach here next year, which could be an offensive guy to begin with, I really am starting to think that maybe Bill O'Brien might be one and done in New England, because that's the biggest reason is if you hire a Ben Johnson or somebody, like he's going to come in and run his own offense. So he doesn't need Bill O'Brien here. But even if you don't, I just wonder if maybe they go in a completely different direction offensively with the next hire.
All right, that leads me to my next question, because I was thinking, well, we may not have time for this today because we do want to spend some time on the immediacy of everything that's happening. But, one of the things that I kind of thought about in general terms with so much out there, not only in the local media here, but now spreading into the national media as to, wow, would the Patriots really consider firing Bill Belichick? And so I really have a simple threefold question. And I want anybody and everybody who's listening to this right now to offer your opinion one way or the other. You can pick up the phone, 855-PATS-500, web radio at patriots.com on email, or hit me up on x.com. Matt, he's laughing because I always say Twitter. It's still Twitter. At JR Broadcaster, okay? Three things. Which one do you pick? Where Bill Belichick is concerned, okay? Keep him, let him go, trade him.
So I'm gonna cross sports. If that's okay with you.
Fine.
I know some programs don't.
Whatever analogy you want to use is fine by me.
So
this is the playbook, so we'll open it up wide.
If he cares at all, which I tend to think he doesn't care, but if he does care at all about how he leaves the Patriots and how he leaves the organization at the end here. When the Celtics traded Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett to the Brooklyn Nets, they knew that their window was shut.
Yeah, it was gone.
They weren't going to win another title.
Right.
They knew that.
Right.
And their parting gift to the Celtics, because the Celtics needed their permission to trade them. I think KG in particular might have had a no-trade clause. Their parting gift to the Celtics was, you can trade us to Brooklyn and get a haul of draft picks for us, and those draft picks turn into Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So he jokes about it, but Paul Pierce always jokes about how you're welcome, Boston.
Yeah.
Right? Not only did
I let you trade me.
Not only did I win you a title, but then I gave you a decade of relevant basketball because I gave you Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, right? So if I'm Bill Belichick and I'm thinking about this, I think that my preference would be to trade him, because if you can get a real asset in exchange for Bill Belichick, big if, but if you can get a real asset in exchange for Bill Belichick, this team needs rebuilding assets. Like, that's what they need. Even if you're talking about a day 2 draft pick, it's a little parting gift.
See, I think that is the least likely of the three scenarios to occur. Much as I think in theory we'd all like to see that, the number one reason that's the least likely scenario to occur is because everybody knows you're trying to get rid of him.
Yeah, the part of the compensation is going to be an issue.
You got a one for the Broncos the Saints got a one for Sean Payton.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you going to get a one for Bill Belichick? No,
because he's 10 years older.
Exactly the point.
Yeah.
And Bill's going to say, "I'm not even worth a one. No, I'm not going for that. Don't trade me. Fire me."
This is where I said that if he cares, because what I meant to say, by that is that in my mind, he would want to get fired regardless.
Yes, because he can be a free agent and pick and choose his spot.
And the Crafts have to pay him.
Yes.
Right? So
so he's going to beg him, hey, if I'm not your coach, fire me.
Right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't behoove Bill Belichick whatsoever to to be traded.
Yeah.
It really doesn't.
No, it doesn't benefit him at all.
No.
But if you're looking at it from an organizational point of view, yeah, you're going to try to get some assets from him. But if you're not going to get good Lord. I think even Bruce Arians got a 1, didn't he?
He might have. This is where I think that.
And we can't get a 1 for maybe the greatest coach of all time? No. And you can't get a 1? Are you freaking serious?
Not at his
really?
age. I think there's a chance that if it's a team like the Chargers, a team like the Cowboys, a team like the Commanders, maybe depending
who are
on
close to winning,
and more so that aren't picking in the top 10.
Yeah.
Like let's say it's the 25th pick in the draft, and so you're not getting, for example, well, Carolina doesn't have their first round pick, so I guess that's a bad example. Mm-hmm. But you're not getting a top 10 pick for Bill Belichick.
You're not going to Carolina. That's worse of a dumpster fire than this is.
You're not getting a top 10 pick for Bill Belichick. Could you get the 15th pick in the draft from the Chargers for Bill Belichick?
Maybe.
I still say no,
think,
but maybe.
No, but maybe. But if you could get that, then I think it probably is to your benefit to do that.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then you've got your own pick plus the 15th. Now you got 2 of the top 15 picks.
Right. Draft a quarterback and a receiver.
Yeah.
And there you go.
And you're ready to roll.
Right.
And the new era has begun all over again.
Right.
Just like it did 3 years ago.
Totally. Yeah. I just, when I look at this situation, I think the one thing that I keep on trying to wrap my head around is, like, how do they keep Bill? We all know all the reasons why they shouldn't keep Bill, and I'm all in the camp of get rid of Bill. Like, trust me. But are there any arguments for keeping him? And what are they?
Number 1, 23 years of history.
Right. See, that to me is like
10 Super Bowl appearances.
You can't rest on the laurels.
No, you can't. You can't.
I don't disagree with you.
But he also brought you 6 trophies. And I just, to me, I don't think that's calculable. I mean, it changed the whole face and demeanor of the franchise to the point now where people all over the country are taking pot shots at the Patriots because they suck so bad right now.
Yeah.
Okay? But if you didn't win before and kick the crap out of people along the way, you wouldn't have this scenario. People just roll their eyes and say, it's the Patriots, they blow already anyway. But now people are vehement about it. Why would Rex Ryan come out and say what he did this week? Bill, go ahead and tell us your damn quarterback because they both stink to high heaven or whatever it was he said. I'm paraphrasing, right? Okay, why would Rex even feel the need to do that? Because Rex has been waiting his whole life to beat the Patriots at something. And he can't, and he hasn't, and he never will.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is it's everybody's time to jump in now and beat up on New England.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have this scenario if there wasn't winning done beforehand.
Yeah.
If there wasn't being up on the totem pole beforehand. So that's I mean, to me, that's just like, it's like putting the cart before the horse. It doesn't belong. The horse has got to go first. Bill Belichick is the horse. And so to me, I don't think just letting him go is an option. I think that's last. If I had to choose amongst the 3 of what's likely to happen, I say he's fired.
Yeah, I think that will be, and this is the one thing that I try not to get too much into, as we call them, Paul's shows and all the sports radio stuff. But in reality, you have to see it for what it is.
Of course,
and that is that. There is going to be a little bit of a power struggle here now between Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick.
There absolutely will be, Evan.
Yeah.
And
it might have already started.
Oh, I listen, why do you think Mr. Kraft hasn't said anything?
Yeah.
Because he's biding his time to the end of the year. Then they're going to have that sit down and they're like, all right, Bill, what do you want to do? And he's going to be like, well, what do you mean what I want to do? I'm going to coach football. And he's like, well, it's pretty clear that the direction we're heading is not the direction we need to head.
Right.
And then that's where the gnashing of the teeth and the boxing of fists, and that's
Bill's
when it's going to start.
Bill's going to, I agree with the Felgers of the world on this. Bill's going to say, fire me. Kraft is going to say, why would I let you go?
Why would I let you go? You're an asset.
Right. And a way,
And now we're going to have to negotiate. So it'll be a cluster bleep is what it will be. And they're going to work out some kind of an arrangement, potentially where they'll trade him to a team that he would want to go to.
Yeah.
Which could be the Chargers, which could be this week's opponent. You might be looking at Bill Belichick on the other sideline this time next year if that happens. It's possible.
It's possible.
And-
I don't like it for the Chargers. Like, I love it for
No,
Bill.
no.
but
I do like it for the Chargers, and I'm going to tell you why. Because it gives them identity, and they don't have it even in their own stadium or their own city.
So that's
they
fair.
are the Rams' stepchild.
That's fair.
Redheaded stepchild in Los Angeles. Those are the Chargers. They're not the Los Angeles Chargers. They never will be the Los Angeles Chargers. They will always be San Diego, and that's just the way it is. And so for them to have an identity, they need somebody that will focus attention on them, on the lightning bolts, on the baby blue and the gold. Bill Belichick can do that for that franchise.
That's a great point. And I think in a lot of ways, that's why Robert Kraft hired Bill Parcells back in the day.
Yes!
Is to give the Patriots
Yes!
relevancy.
Now you're cooking on the analogy.
But
100%.
At the same time, I look at it from the Chargers' perspective and from a football perspective, because that's what I do. And Justin Herbert is your asset, right? He's your prize. He's a franchise quarterback.
And why wouldn't Bill want to go coach Justin Herbert?
Why wouldn't Bill want to go coach Justin Herbert is 100% true. If you're Justin Herbert and you're the Chargers, I would seriously be reluctant, not just because of what just happened to Mac Jones under Bill Belichick's watch, but also because of Bill's age at 72 of what are you really hoping for out of that marriage? Because if I'm the Chargers, I'm thinking, who is the Kyle Shanahan that we can pluck that can be with Justin Herbert for the next decade, not for the next 2 years?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And so I think that's the problem for the Chargers.
That would be a little bit of a fly in the ointment. Yeah, I agree with that one. Sure.
Plus, is he going to bring Josh McDaniels with him to run the offense? Is he going to bring Bill O'Brien with him?
I seem to think a guy named Josh McDaniels is available.
Right, but those guys, again, it's all temporary. I feel like with the Bills' next stop.
But again, when the Patriots were building with Bill Parcells, I don't think there was any 10 or 15 year plan ahead. It was like, we need to get relevant, and we need to get relevant now.
Yeah.
And that's the same situation the Chargers are in L.A.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the other team, because of the same situation, is Washington. I think they have a new owner that has deep pockets, that's trying to make your splash and make it, known that we're here to spend and we're here to build something in Washington. And I think it's the same sort of thing. It's the Parcells analogy there as well.
I think that's a believable scenario as well. All right.
Yep.
So I'm interested in what you guys think. 855-PATS-500, web radio at patriots.com, at JR Broadcaster on X. Thanks, Ev. Always appreciate the comments. All right. So
I stayed this time, just for the record.
Yeah, he did. He did. That's very true. I can't bitch you out a blue streak anymore, so that's good. And maybe next week we'll actually get to talk some football. Who knows, right? But we'll take our chances on that one. A lot of it depends on the team that occupies the stadium on Sundays here. So that conversation is actually kind of lead in a little bit to the next person we're dealing with, because Chris Mason, who covers the Patriots for MassLive.com, is going to join us here momentarily. Fernando Ramirez, who covers the L.A. Chargers for Sporting Tribune. He's going to join us later in the show, as will Russell Baxter on Week 13 around the NFL. So we got a lot to get to. I wasn't sure that the tone and the tenor of this conversation today was going to go this direction. But, Chris, I'm really happy that you're with us today for a couple of reasons, because I know you just wrote about this on MassLive.com about what should happen next between Bill Belichick and also Robert Kraft and the Kraft family. And I've always been of the opinion, and I don't know what they've told you. Maybe they've told you something differently. But they told me several years ago, before this was ever even a conversation, that, Bill can do what Bill wants because Bill has a lifetime worth of goodwill built up with 6 Super Bowl championships in New England. Jonathan Kraft once told me he will never fire Bill Belichick. And that is a quote, okay? Now, that was years ago, but he did say that. And he didn't say that just to me. He said it to, an open public floor. So I'm kind of curious to know what your beliefs are and where you think this relationship goes from this point forward, when it's very clear it can't stay the same.
Well, if Jonathan's the one, if Robert is the one who technically fires Bill, then that means Jonathan did, right? There you go. Then his words are still okay. But no, I think you're going to see a mutual quote unquote mutual parting of ways. Like, I think that's the next step for this, and I think everyone around here knows it's not working. Bill clearly still wants to keep coaching, so I think that he's going to have to find somewhere new.
Well, it certainly stands to reason that that's going to be the case. The question that I'm asking everybody today is there are three real scenarios here that could happen. The dominoes could fall any one of these three tracks, and which one do you favor? A, you keep Bill. B, you let Bill go. C, you trade Bill. Which one happens?
I think B is the most likely. I think people like the idea of C, but I think that gets really complicated, and there's a reason it doesn't happen often. And plus, say Bill's going somewhere else, right, and agrees that he's going to the Chargers or he's going wherever. Why is he going to want to give up a draft pick coming up, a high draft pick in exchange for himself? Like, I don't think he wants that, and I think he can make things really difficult doing that.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me either, to be quite honest with you. I'm just kind of like, yeah. And what do I mean? You can't get a 1 for me? Are you kidding me? I mean, and why would I give up a 1? And I'm just like, oh, yeah.
Right.
I can see that being just like, lawsuit city, just like when Bill came here from the Jets. Literally, that's exactly what I feel like we're getting ready to go through all over again, except on the shoes on the other foot.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see, like, I heard the tail end of what you and Evan were talking about, the different locations.
Yeah.
One that makes a ton of sense to me is, like, the chips fall a certain way is Dallas, where if they go one and done or, like, torpedo out of the playoffs, I think Jerry's going to look to move on from Mike McCarthy. And then I think Bill can, like, really – I think he's going to want to go somewhere where he can win now. I don't think he's going to want to be a part of a rebuild. And some of the rebuilding teams, I don't know why they would want this.
But would he, Chris, would he go somewhere where he won't make the call on buying the groceries?
So that's the thing. That's essentially the consolation that I think he'd have to make if he wants to go to a win-now season, is that he has to take a step back from personnel, just coach. And I wonder if that's something that he's ready for at this point, where we've heard him more this year than any other year before. And, like, some of that's the record, of course, but just talk about how, No one person can do all personnel and all coaching. Like, you need a lot of other people involved, and he's, like, kind of distanced himself from the personnel stuff in a way that he has never really before.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been, it's Bill's show. It all runs through him, and at a certain level it does. But he's talked about it more plainly this year than he ever has before.
Yeah, and I could see him saying, well, maybe I could coach another 3 or 4 years even if I, had less job stress. And I think giving up the decision-making process would probably lend itself to that, no?
Yeah, I would agree. And he always raves about Dallas's roster. Like, anytime I see him earlier this year, he speaks so highly of, the Pro Bowlers on there and everything. He has a good relationship with Stephen Jones. So I think that he'd probably be happy to, like, slide in somewhere and just coach.
Such issues that we have to deal with. We can't talk about X's and O's in football and receivers getting open deep. Oh, we could talk about that because the Patriots don't have any. So I think that's pretty clear to see. And I'm not playing straight man to my own joker here at the same time. I mean, it's a legitimate problem. I mentioned to Evan a little bit earlier. Again, Chris Mason from MassLive.com joining us. I mentioned Evan earlier. I said, this is the first time really since 1990 that I can recall going into a Patriots football game knowing full well that they had zero shot. Now, I gave them a shot against the Giants because the Giants are almost as pathetic as they are on offense. And clearly, I think the Patriots do have at least something left on defense because they're without their two best athletes, and they're still holding people down. They limited the Giants to 220 yards last week and 10 points. The problem is largely, almost entirely on the offensive side of the ball. And it's an absolute nadir of ineptitude. You can't go beyond bottom where this team has gone. And so where do you start building back up? And, Bill O'Brien said this week to you guys, to all the reporters, he said, hey, it starts with me. I'm just as much at fault as anybody else here. And I'm paraphrasing what he said. But I'm like, well, thank God somebody's standing up.
Yeah, there's definitely plenty of blame to go around, and what you're saying about, like, going into games expecting losses has still kind of taken some getting used to this year, where there have been a couple of times where, like, after they got skunked by Dallas, I remember being like, all right, but there's no way that like Derek Carr comes into Foxborough and beats Bill Belichick and like puts a nail in that coffin, right? Like that's not going to happen. And then they get blown out in that game. They don't just lose; they get blown out. And there's a little more of the same thing this week, right? Where it's like, well, there's no way that Belichick's going to lose to Tommy DeVito, right? Like that just can't happen, and then it does. So
I know. Just
perception, it's reality now. It's just happening.
His name rolling off the tongue just doesn't compute. Bill Belichick and Tommy DeVito. What? Really?
Right.
Goodness, I just that one blew me away. I said and I thought just like everybody else. I said there's no way Bill can lose to Tommy DeVito. Yeah, just like damned if they didn't figure out a way to do it. And the other thing that really bothered me, I think, from something that just hurt me in my soul as a football fan, right? Not so much as a Patriots, talk show host or Patriots employee or whatever, but as a fan, it hurt my soul because here's a 2-8 football team playing for a freaking tie. What are we doing?
It was that last drive was crazy. And like Bill's explanation for it too, where he's like, "Well, we weren't doing that because we threw on second down and didn't end around on third." It's like, what?
Yeah.
Like you're watching the entire tempo of that drive
Yeah.
and the entire pacing, and it's like you're clearly playing for a field goal.
Clearly.
Like, you didn't take a shot at the end zone.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to play, if you wanted to go for the win, you're going to take a shot at the end zone. The problem is this offense can't take a shot at the end zone. There's not enough time for the quarterback to find a guy. There's not enough time for the receivers to get open. If they even run the right routes, there's nothing there. And so that's why they're forced to do jet sweeps and end arounds and bubble screens. And, oh, my Lord. I mean, how many passes did they have actually that traveled longer than 10 yards on Sunday? It had to be single digits.
Completed, it was very, very few. I can tell you that.
I mean, that's just it's not. I mean, hell, let's go back and let's run the wishbone, because at least it would surprise the crap out of people. That's. Yeah. I mean, I'm just like, wow, it almost doesn't compute. And so, while Bill O'Brien has rightfully taken some of his share of the blame, and to me, he's been one of the greater disappointments of the year. If Mac Jones is disappointment 1, Bill O'Brien is 1A, as far as I'm concerned. And then you probably put Troy Brown on the receiving core there as 1B, if not higher. You can make a case for all of them. And then 1C would have to be the overall performance of the offensive line, which, by the way, has been at least steady, if unspectacular, over the last several weeks. Because they've finally gotten guys healthy, even though it's still not the complete offensive line they thought they would have, but at least we have seen a little bit of an upward tick here. So I'm just like, wow, one problem begats another, and it's like, this is where you think Jenga, and you pull out the center block, and everything falls down, and you start over.
Yeah, I agree. And, the offensive line has stabilized a bit, and that was after they moved Mike Onwenu out to tackle, which is one of those things that's like, why did this take so long? And why have you been so, averse to doing it, where the second that happened, it was like, they're not a perfect offensive line, but they looked a heck of a lot better than they did when they were rotating other guys at right tackle. I don't know why that was such a complicated move for them. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, to the Jenga point, it's like this entire offense has been like, well, is it the chicken or the egg? Is it the offensive line, or is it the wide receivers not getting open, or is it Mac Jones not playing well? It's all of them. We have enough evidence that, nothing on this offense has worked and nothing's gone well.
Well, one of the things, Chris, that I liked about, the piece that you wrote in Mass Live was that, you quoted, let me see if I can find it here. Okay, Mr. Kraft says, because without a good coach and a good quarterback, no matter how good the other players are, I don't think you can win consistently. Hopefully, I believe we have both, an outstanding coach and a good young prospect. Is he delusional?
Yeah, that hasn't aged well, has it?
No.
And that's why, he has to know, though. And I think that's why you're going to see
and we should mention
major change.
We should mention, put it in context, he said this, a year ago? That was the quote that you used in the story?
It was after Mac's rookie year.
Okay.
So 2 years ago.
Yeah, so 2 years ago he said that. And now things have changed, and I wonder if he still believes the same way he does. And if he doesn't, that's why I offer up the 3 scenarios, because clearly something has to happen.
Yeah, and I think scenario 2 there, the mutual parting of ways where they just go their separate ways, I think that's what you're going to see this offseason. which seems crazy, but, things have gotten that bad, and that's just the reality that the Patriots are looking at right now.
Right. Are we all going to stare at the opposing sideline this Sunday in Foxborough and wonder if the hoodie is going to be wearing a baby blue and gold?
What a look that'd be, huh?
Right.
Are you allowed to cut the sleeves off the baby blue hoodies?
That's a great question. I mean, I remember I'm old enough to remember when I saw Vince Lombardi coach the Washington then Redskins, okay, when he left Green Bay. And I'm thinking, that doesn't work. And you know what? It didn't. He didn't last very long. And so,
Montana.
Yes.
Montana in the Chiefs uniform, right?
Yeah,
where the only time this has actually worked is Brady.
Right. That's exactly right. Montana wearing a Chiefs uniform is like, man, that's just not right. There's something that just, we've angered the football gods with that move. And, and the moves that generally, don't appease the football gods usually don't work out. And with the one exception being Tom Brady, which kind of adds to the mystique and, the whole, Tom Brady thing. And look, I'm not one to get into the, which one is better, Brady or Belichick argument. I think you can make arguments on both sides of it here. I think it just kind of underscores the fact how unique a talent Tom really was and how no one really appreciated what kind of a talent he really was until it was too late to do anything about it. And then he was already gone. And I think that's also part of the blame that, Coach Belichick has to share and also the Crafts have to share in the whole TB12, exiting stage south for Tampa when that happened a few years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was just on a 2-year, $50 million deal. He just wanted $25 million a year. And, I don't think that could have aged any worse for the Patriots, right? No.
So that's why, we kind of bring it back full circle here and, and where do you go from here? And, I think we take it on a week-to-week basis, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see, Coach Belichick continue to operate like this every week where just like Rex Ryan, railed about him this week and, playing, footsie, pardon me, I had to say that, with the Patriots quarterbacks, every week. And I think that's going to continue for the rest of the year. I think if he's true to his word, and we've known Bill to largely be true to his word, and to stay pretty consistent, if not, agonizingly consistent, that each week it'll be a competition. And why shouldn't it be? Because if you're a football team that's 2-9, as this team is now, you got to figure out what's keepable and what you need to move on from. And there's no better way to do that than to consider these last 6 weeks of the regular season, to consider them extended preseason for next year. A jump on summer of 2024. That's what they should be doing, and everybody should be fighting for a job every week. What do you think?
I agree, and I think you're going to see more of that, too, where even last week you saw way more Taekwon Thornton, Kayshon Boutte than you have, where, I think the young guys are going to get out there. Based on what we saw at practice today in the brief media window, it looked like Bailey Zappi might have jumped Mack on the depth chart here, where Mack didn't throw any passes. Bailey was throwing almost the whole time.
Yep.
So, maybe he gets a look. And at this point, I feel like those two quarterbacks are kind of competing for a backup job next year, where, I don't think either of them is going to be the starter at this time next year, but
nor do I
maybe
think
one of them sticks around as a backup.
Yeah, and nor do I think Mack will be either. So that's just me. I
think you're just going to see open tryouts now down the line. Like, they need to know who's a keeper, who's not.
Yeah, it has to be that way. That's the only logical move that really bears going forward here. And whether or not Bill adheres to that or whether or not the Crafts believe in that, I think, the next 6 weeks should probably tell a lot. So, final one for you here, Chris, and thanks for the time today. Is the game on Sunday winnable for the New England Patriots?
Ultimately, I think – this is like what we were talking about earlier, right? Where you talk yourself into every week. Like, is Bill really going to lose to this Chargers defense? It's been so bad. Yeah, and you do that, and you think like it's 5 years ago, and it's not. So hypothetically, is it winnable? Yeah. Will they win it? I don't think so.
Yeah, that's kind of my same feeling. Because I thought that they would beat the Giants too. I would have. Had I been a gambling man, I think I would have. Put a large sum on the Patriots last week just based on the way things were, that someone was going to get PO'd and just tee off. They're not capable of it.
Coming off a bye, no less.
Yeah, they're not capable. And Bill has had a good track record through his years coming off a bye until the last couple of years.
Right.
Last couple of years, he's been miserable coming off the bye, which is why you probably should pay attention to these things, because there's something about these trends here, right? But I'm kind of with you on this. I mean, I think it will take a bolt, pardon the pun, it'll take a bolt of lightning to change things. And maybe that's what these guys are waiting for. They're not taking matters into their own hands. They're waiting for something to happen, and it ain't happening. So if we get to the end of the season, then it'll happen in that, postseason, okay, what do we do from here meeting? And that's when the contention undoubtedly will rise, and we'll all talk about it and opine about it, and won't have a single factor in it at all, because that's just, it's between the muckety-mucks here. Chris, thank you for the time today. Greatly appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. Chris Mason. He is at Chris Mason _ I have to look at his Twitter. I hadn't found it, or his X. Find it. You want to find it, Matt? He's got it right here. I want to make sure I get it right. In case you're not following him, you got to be able to follow the guy properly, right? Okay, at by Chris Mason. I knew it was something a little different in there. Okay, so at by Chris Mason on X, and that's where you can find him. Fernando Ramirez will join us on the Chargers coming up at the top of the hour. Russell Baxter at the bottom of the next hour on Week 13 around the NFL, and we'll get his thoughts on coaching history and how it normally, for the greatest that have ever coached this game of the NFL, how their careers have just about all crashed and burned at the end. Maybe with one exception. We'll talk about that exception coming up with Russell Baxter at the bottom of the hour. In the meantime, our good buddy Eldred. I hope you're safe in North Carolina, Eldred.
How you doing there, Mr. Legend?
Yeah, baby. It's all good. Get out of your freaking way, all right?
Oh, yeah, they need to. But right now I'm finna go because I'm off.
Okay.
Started a little early, finna get off a little.
Nice. Okay,
yeah.
I like that. That works.
Yes.
That works.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. What are you thinking about? I know because you've been on hold, so you heard most of this conversation here. I'm just kind of curious to what you think your thoughts are.
I would try to trade him, but like y'all said, he probably won't want to do that. And partner of the way is probably the best way. But if it has to, fire him.
Mm-hmm.
Because this can't. Is it in? It ran this course here.
Mm-hmm.
I can see if he, had some talent here or there, or did some things a little different.
Mm-hmm.
And that, but the way he handled I ain't gonna say the last couple of years with Brady, but I'm talking about after Brady. It's just atrocious. Anybody else, y'all, we've been laughing them out. Somebody ruined the quarterback, or they're what they normally do. That's that. I understand. He won six Super Bowls, 10 Super Bowls appearance, won 6. Well, we should have had 8 instead of 6.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2 against the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
I can't live that down with the family because they keep giving it to me about that.
Right. Yeah.
But I think it's time to let go. And Troy Brown, let his butt go too. Send him away. Get another wide receiver coach.
See, I had to ask that question at the top because, quite frankly, it's almost heresy to speak of not only Bill Belichick but Troy Brown in that regard. Don't you think? I mean, because Brown was a great player here. He was one of those guys that always did more with less. He was an undersized guy when he first came to New England, of course. I think we know the story. And he was an overachiever to the nth degree. And now, in coaching, it just hasn't translated as well to the point now where, he actually might be a pretty good coach, but the guys that he has, in the receivers room right now, for whatever reason, are just fundamentally flawed in some form or fashion, and Troy isn't making them any better.
I don't buy that. I don't buy. Sir, if you're a good coach, especially with wide receiver stuff, I'm going wide receiver. I ain't going defense. I'm going offense. So that's what I like anyway. It's the way you get somebody. You can tell from day one what that guy got, what he doesn't have, and you can work on his shortcomings. Mm-hmm. But if you ain't working with him, and it ain't showing week to week, day to day, week to week, then you cut that guy, or you find another one.
Mm-hmm.
You can't keep getting wide receivers. I mean, all the draft for the last 4 or 5 years. I admit Harry was a big butt. Mitchell was an outliner.
Mm-hmm. But
everybody else that came, Douglas, he's a little bit of outliner. He just needs some little fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Troy, you played that position. Edelman, what you call Welker, they play the position too. So if you play that position, you ought to know the ins and outs. But you're not helping them. They ain't getting no separation.
Mm-hmm.
They ain't got no spacing. And most of it's in play calling too. But you still got a space. When you draw plays, you got a space. Somebody running 7, 8, somebody running 10, somebody running 12.
Sure.
And it's the way you run, or 15.
Sure.
It's the way you run. But like I said, it's on him. It's on him.
Mm-hmm.
Tyquan Thornton, I admit, Troy, you wasn't a speed guy. But you can't tell me you can't show him how to get off a jam. You had to. You did it all your life in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
You had to.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't get him off a jam. You can't say, okay, we need to motion this guy because he's like a little green bean or whatever you want to call it. He can't really get off press good, and then get him out in the open and tell him, run, put that 4.2 speed to use. Don't be loafing like you're looking for a loaf of bread. Run. And if you don't, sit him.
Matt, you need to mark that because that was a very good Eldredism right there.
Sorry.
Eldred, it's only because we love you. We love you, and and there are others that love you too, and so we like that. So I had to give the Marine a little instruction here, and he saluted me.
Well,
So
I'm passionate about the team,
I know you are.
and just losing thing. It's just like I said before. Everybody scoffed me at. I'm gonna say it again. You could be the greatest coach of all time, have the greatest schemes, the greatest plays, the greatest whatever. But if you ain't got the players to execute that, you're just a coach holding a clipboard.
100%. Dude, you're 100% right.
That's all you are.
Right, and that's
what happened this year.
And that's the thing that pains, I think, the most is that you have this guy who clearly, and Bill Belichick, who clearly has coached circles around people over the years. And then over the last few years, yes, very much so. And over the last few years, personnel has slipped. I think attention to detail has slipped. I think that discipline has slipped. And I think this is a natural, and I think this is a natural byproduct of the aging process and the stress in the business of pro football. I think as we all get older, we all slip. And I've always told myself, and you can tell me this too, Elder, because I consider you a friend, all right? But when I slip, it's time for me to go, okay? I want to get out before I slip and fall and break something. That's my issue.
Yes, sir.
And I think
my issue too.
And I think Bill has slipped. And I wonder if when he falls, if something isn't going to break off. And I think that's kind of where we are if we're going to use that analogy here. And so, do we collect what we can get for him, or do we just kind of pat him on the back and send him off into the rocking chair, or do we let him continue the course because his job is unfinished and because we owe it to him because he's won 6 trophies here in Foxborough?
No way in hell. Excuse me.
Okay.
No way, sir.
Tell me
way.
exactly how you
Because,
feel, all right?
I gave a question to the PU group.
Yep.
Let's say Mr. Kraft, they decide to go ahead and keep things as are.
Mm-hmm.
He come back next year. Okay. We got the top 2 to the sixth pick. Do you trust Bill with that pick? And I sure hell don't. Because I think he'll come down.
Yeah, I mean,
he'll trade down, try to get this and that. So you miss out on the quarterback. You miss out on Marvin Harrison. But there is a bunch of good wide receivers in this group, especially the 2 guys from Texas. And
well, you know that I'm a particular fan of Xavier Worthy, but I would tell you this about Worthy.
Yes.
Worthy has issues holding onto the ball on occasion. I don't think his ball safety is very good. I think he's like you described. Sometimes he carries it like a loaf of bread.
Loaf of bread.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I saw that one game when Texas played.
But
I forgot who they played, but I saw that too.
Yeah, but there is no doubt in my mind. Watch the Big 12 championship game this week. There's no doubt in my mind that he probably is the fastest guy with a football in his hands in the country in college football. And I would love to see Xavier Worthy and Texas match up in the playoff against Georgia in particular, because I think Texas is the one team that matches up with Georgia based on what I've seen of these two teams this year. And why can't we get a talent like that? Because I think he would be available likely in the second round.
In the second and third. Yeah, I already seen some of the pre-draft because I'm working on my board a little bit.
Yep.
But I also like Johnny Wilson out of my college. I like Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
I hate Coach Jordan Travis got hurt
Mm-hmm.
because he was gonna go he was gonna rising up, and they undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know how it's gonna work out the rest of the season since he's down. But I'm hoping that we be fighting for the championship,
right,
against Georgia or whoever.
I got to tell you, I don't like your chances after Jordan went down. I just don't like the chances overall.
I don't either. After Jordan went down, I don't either.
Yeah,
I don't either. But Johnny Wilson, 6'7", outside, got a little speed, catch, and like I said, he's going in the top second round,
okay,
not third, second.
Okay.
And then I got my little board or whatever.
Yep.
And I'm going to text it to you.
Okay.
Maybe about a couple more days. I'm still looking.
Okay.
Still whatever.
All right. I'll look
quarterback-wise.
Yeah, I'll look forward to seeing that.
I like Penix.
Penix, yeah.
Out of Washington,
Mm-hmm.
because he's accurate. Everybody keeps saying, the only thing he got is a long ball. No.
I like the fact that he's a lefty.
He can throw it immediate.
Yeah, I like
he's a lefty.
I like
he's got some on it.
Yeah, exactly. I got to tell you, the guy that's impressed me the most overall this year, the guy that's impressed me the most, and I didn't think he had it in him, but maybe it's because he has the supporting talent, is Bo Nix.
Oh, Nix? No, I'm not impressed.
Why? Why?
Oregon? I'm not impressed.
Well, just because of the offense that they run at Oregon?
Offense and just, I don't know. He played somebody, and he just a couple good teams, and it just didn't look right.
But there's a guy that you could pick up, in after the first round, I think. Although he might be working himself, into that equation before all of a sudden, especially if Oregon, ends up winning the title.
Yeah, because he is working his way up.
Right. Yeah, correct. Right.
But
all right. Another conversation for another day. We'll worry about that another day. Right.
All right, sir. You have a good one.
All right,
good
brother.
Talking to you, Mr.
Yeah. Love you, buddy. Eldred in North Carolina, driving that truck. Get the hell out of his way. Fernando Ramirez covers the Los Angeles Chargers for the Sporting Tribune, and he's kind enough to join us from the left coast here inside the Patriots Playbook. Hey, Fernando. John Rook here in Foxborough. Thanks for the time today, brother.
Hey, John. Thank you so much for having me. And hey, it's around 12 o'clock. We're barely getting up over here on the West Coast.
Oh, stop it! I know, right? Sun's just come up this morning. I hadn't had my coffee yet. I know. Believe me, I get it. So I'm kind of curious because it seems to me that more than one or two people are probably going to think as they watch this game unfold on Sunday here on the East Coast that. Wow, wouldn't it be weird if Bill Belichick is standing on that sideline next year? Has that thought crossed anybody's mind at all from a Charger perspective over the course of the last, 2 to 4 weeks?
I think it's crossed their minds ever since 2001 when when they started winning championships over there. But, when it comes to the media aspect of it and the team and everything, no. Everybody just focused on finishing the season and seeing how everything kind of lays out. But when you look on Twitter and social media, yeah, fans are throwing out his name. They're throwing out Jim Harbaugh. They're throwing out Dan Quinn, names like that. But yeah, the fans are talking about it. But when it comes to everybody else, everybody's just focused. The Chargers are obviously focused on trying to run the table and squeeze into the playoffs like they did kind of at the end of last season.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to ask you that because after losing this past week, they're 4-7 now, correct?
Yes.
So this team is 4-7. How realistic is it, considering what they have left on the schedule, for them to work themselves back into a position they were in a year ago?
To be completely honest, I just don't see it. You don't have Mike Williams. You don't have Corey Linsley. Josh Palmer, you don't know what's going on with him. The offensive line's a mess. The running game can't get going. The defense. They played well against the Ravens, but they just have not been good at all this season. And that's kind of Brandon Staley's MO. He's a defensive mind, and it just hasn't gotten going this year. So it's not the same team as it was last year. I think last year they had a favorable end to the schedule. They played Nick Foles. They faced beat up kind of Ryan Tannehill. the Dolphins had just come back from being thrashed by the 49ers. So they had some favorable stuff fall their way. I just don't think it's going to happen. Honestly, I've been saying this lately. I don't know if they'll win another game this year. Just that's how tough this is. This last stretch of the season, you play Denver twice, you go to the Raiders. It's just you play the Bills, so it's just a tough ending to this schedule. So it's going to be very difficult to find a win or two, and much less 6. Like that's just it's going to be very tough.
Well, then it sounds to me like we might have a stare down at the OK Corral, known as Gillette Stadium, this Sunday, with two teams that really shouldn't win another game for the rest of the year, to be quite honest with you.
I mean, yeah, you're completely right. And the thing is that the Chargers have struggled this year, and I mean, lately on offense, it's been the Keenan Allen and Justin Herbert show.
Yep.
Other than that, no other offensive guy has kind of stepped up to help out the offense. I mean, there's been little contribution here, there, but it hasn't been consistent. That's the one thing. Justin and Keenan have been consistent, but there's no other weapon on there. So I fully expect Bill Belichick to try and take away Keenan Allen on Sunday and let everybody else beat him.
Yeah, well, that certainly has been the descriptive form that Bill has been known for. But unfortunately, of late, it just seems like Bill can't get out of his own way. Based on what the offense has done, and I would tell you that defensively, while they're, the Patriots are missing arguably their two best athletes in Judon and Gonzalez, that they've been respectable. They haven't really been burnt. I think they tend to play really soft in the defensive backfield, and I think we saw that this last week because Tommy DeVito for the Giants actually, threw for, damn near 200 yards on him, and I'm just like, wow, it was just, so Justin Herbert could have a field day if the Patriots defense is playing, soft zone coverage, and I almost think that they do that just so they don't get beat over the top. But it's maddening to get yourself in position where you can make a stop and get off the field, and to allow this kind of thing to happen. What do you feel like is the best thing right now that the Chargers do for themselves on the field over 60 minutes?
Keenan Allen and Justin Herbert, to be honest. I mean, that combination, Keenan Allen's on pace right now to have his best season as a pro at 31 years old. I mean, he's at 1,179 yards. He has 7 touchdowns, and in the last 3 games, he's had 175, 116, and 106. So he really is playing at a high level. That has to be that's probably the one positive thing that you kind of take away from this season. And obviously on the defensive side of the football, Khalil Mack, he's on pace also to have a career year. He has 13 sacks. He's 2 away from tying his career high and 3 away from surpassing that. And then he's 3.5 sacks away from 100 in his career. So
he might get that this weekend.
You think so?
He might.
Wow.
And I'm really not trying to be funny. I'm really not. I really think, because Mac is a guy that I've always liked. I think his talent is off the charts. But I'm just like, wow. I mean, if I'm the Chargers and I really want to win a game and I want to stop the naysayers, I'm just like, hey, we're 4-7. We got to make something happen here. Let's go. And I'm turning him loose.
Yeah, no, and the thing is, too, is that Mac, I mean, from an outsider looking in, it's like that first year with Josh McDaniels, everything was set up correctly for him. McDaniels leaves, and it's like everything else has kind of been up and down with him. So I think that kind of hurt him. But yeah, I'm sure the Chargers will try and throw the kitchen sink at him and pressure him to try and cause turnovers. But the Chargers corners have had a rough go of it. I mean, we saw last week that Brandon Staley benched Michael Davis in favor of Dean Leonard, and Jazier Taylor, their slot corner, also barely saw any play. It was other guys that came up and played, and he said, we're going to have competition in here. We're not just going to let guys go out there and play if they're hurting us. And Michael Davis against the Packers had 2 plays where he just missed. He whiffed on tackles, and another one was miscommunication with him and Kenneth Murray. So it's little things are what's beating this team. I mean, realistically, they could be 9-2 or 10-1 or something around there, but they just have not been able to close out late games, which
Right.
has really hurt them.
And it sounds a lot like what's happened in New England, except you just got, a different quarterback and a little more offense. Again, Fernando Ramirez, who covers the Chargers for the Sporting Tribune, joining us here in the Playbook. So I'm wondering how you feel Coach Staley has done with what he has had to work with this year. Has he lived up to it? Has he coached down to it? Has he underperformed? What has he done with the available talent?
If I can be completely honest, he's kind of followed the script of head coaching tenures under general manager Tom Telesco. Mike McCoy, Anthony Lynn, 2 good seasons to start off their career. In the third one, it starts going downhill. That's kind of been the thing here. I mean, first year they're 9-8. They missed the playoffs by a missed tackle that led to a field goal from the Raiders. And then last year everybody knows about what happened in Jacksonville. But they made the playoffs, and that's just kind of been the MO of head coaches under Tom Telesco.
Mm-hmm.
Mike McCoy, the same thing. 2 good years. It went downhill after the third, during the third one. Anthony Lynn, same thing. So the thing about Brandon Staley is that his defense has steadily declined in the 3 years that he's been here, and it's kind of like, well, that's where you spent all your money. You went out, you got J.C. Jackson. You went out, you got Sebastian Joseph Day. You went out, you traded for Khalil Mack. The one move that looks like it was completely the smartest move was trading for Khalil Mack. I mean, the guy still has a lot left in the tank, and I mean, at 13 sacks right now, I mean, you got to be really impressed at his age, him still playing like that, but. It's going to be interesting to see what happens moving forward, but the defense has not played up to it. The offense is banged up, and I know they say next man up mentality, but the next man up hasn't really helped this team move along. And I know there's frustration because the struggles of Quentin Johnson, but then Zay Flowers comes in here and he scores 2 touchdowns against you. So obviously you're kind of like, well, where did they go wrong with this? So. It's kind of been interesting to see the way his third year has kind of developed, but steadily the defense has declined, in my opinion.
Well, I can see a lot of similarities, a lot of parallels between what the Chargers are going through right now and what the Patriots are also right now going through, and it looks like there's going to be some sort of a meeting of the minds, maybe on both sides, front offices. Once this competitive season has ended, and then the off-season competition begins. How are they stacked up in terms of the salary cap and being able to go out and attack free agency? And do you think they even want to do that?
I mean, to be completely honest, it's just going to depend on if Tom Telesco
who's running it, right?
Still here, or who's running it. But right now they're strapped for it because they decided to push back Khalil Mack, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Joey Bosa's contract, and it just feels like they're $42 million over the cap next year. So it feels like 2 or maybe even 3 of those guys will not be here next year.
Right.
And as of right now, I mean, if I'm the Chargers, I'm pushing to try and keep Khalil Mack and keep Keenan Allen because those 2 guys have just been monumental for their season this year. I mean, without those 2 guys this year, this team has probably only won 1 or 2 games. Just that's how important those guys have been.
Mm-hmm.
But free agency, I just don't know how they're going to attack it. I mean, they need help everywhere. They need tight end help. That's why Georgia's Brock Bowers looks like he would be a solid addition for this team. It's funny because when Justin was in his rookie year, he really went to Hunter Henry on third down. Hunter Henry and Keenan Allen were his third down security blanket. And you could tell he misses having a Hunter Henry kind of style of player. So go get him a tight end.
I was just going to say, we'll trade you Mike Gesicki for a fat burger.
Hey, I know you guys. I thought you were saying In-N-Out. I know you guys.
That In-N-Out too. I love, but me when I'm in LA, I like fat burgers myself. So that's just me.
You guys wouldn't miss the gritty? I mean, Mike
haven't had a chance to see the gritty. What the hell is that? I haven't even seen it. Holy smokes! This hasn't been a gritty kind of year. I got to tell you. Wow.
Oh, I know. Yeah. And when bad teams score touchdowns and you see them dancing, you're kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if you want to be dancing out there just because it hasn't been that kind of year.
Yeah.
But,
well, please don't dance.
But yeah, this team has holes. They have a lot of holes that they're going to need to fix before or going into next season. I mean, and they're kind of strapped for cash, so they're going to have a brilliant draft, which they really haven't had in a long time.
Yeah. Sounds like that. That sounds like it to me. Well, hey, Fernando, I really appreciate the time today. This gives us a little bit of insight. It does look. Hey, I got another trade for you. How about Mac Jones for Justin Herbert?
I don't think anybody over here would make that.
No,
This fan base loves Justin Herbert. But I saw that Bill Belichick had some really nice things to say about about Justin Herbert, and you could tell.
Well, that's because he's going to coach him next year.
So you think this weekend's an audition?
It might be.
Hey, you know, here's a fun fact. He's only 2 years younger than owner Dean Spanos.
Really?
Bill Belichick.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
They are in there. Yeah. Okay. Well, then maybe maybe they decide to hook up like Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick did. Who knows? I'm just saying.
You do need a culture changer. I mean, they haven't had it since Marty Schottenheimer. When Marty Schottenheimer came in here, he changed everything.
Yep.
I heard one quick story. I heard that one day they came out sluggish out of the locker room. They weren't practicing well. An hour into practice, Marty says, "You know what? Everybody go back into the locker room, get out of your gear, get back into your street clothes, and then we're gonna jump back into our gear, and we're gonna come back out here and we're restarting practice." And then everybody's like, "Are you serious?" And he started cussing up a storm, and everybody ran in, changed, and then changed back and came out and had a great practice. So you need somebody like that to kind of change what's going on, and who knows, maybe he is, but as of right now, I mean, Bailey's their guy.
I got to tell you, I understand that, and it wouldn't surprise me if it stayed that way. But then again, nothing would surprise me in the NFL these days. But I said this early in our show today that I'm of the opinion that the Chargers organization, based on what little we know, being here on the East Coast, Chargers organization looks like somebody that could use an attitude change, an attitude adjustment, a bump up in stock, because not only are you talking about the entire NFL, or talking about the league, but you're talking about in the city of Los Angeles against the Rams too. I mean, you got to you fight for newspaper time, airtime on the TV, airtime on the radio, airtime everywhere. You fight for time, I'm sure, inside the stadium.
Yeah, no, and right now you're getting it for negative reasons. I mean,
right.
Everybody's starting off with the Chargers,
right?
But it's to trash the owner, trash the general manager, trash the coach, and even people have been trashing the quarterback. And it's like, really, like this kid's talented, but like you said, attitude adjustment. Yeah. So, but maybe a Massachusetts guy like John Cena could come in here and give this team an attitude adjustment. How do you like that one? I'm a WWE guy, as you can tell.
Yes, I noticed there on your X feed. Yep, absolutely, 100%. I see. I see Triple H right there already. So we're all set. I like it. John Cena would be a good addition. It'd be a total good addition.
There you go.
Yep. Hey, Fernando, really appreciate the chat, man. Thanks for the stories. Thanks for the insight. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much, and happy holidays to everybody. Thank you so much.
Same to you. Fernando Ramirez. You can follow him at Real F Ramirez, RealFRamirez on X. That's where you find him. Writes for the Sporting Tribune. He covers the Los Angeles Chargers. I haven't slipped once today and called them the San Diego Chargers. Not once. That's good. I'm proud of myself.
Better than Bill.
Yeah, right. Did he do that today? Holy crap. See? Man. Yikes, huh? 855-PATS-500. Russell Baxter joins us in just a little bit. Jake is calling us from the land down under, Australia. Hey, Jake, how are you? You're in the playbook.
G'day, guys. How you going?
Good day. Good day, mate. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. Just getting ready for work to shoot off for the day.
Okay. Shoot off. What's the temperature down there? It's the summertime, right?
It's meant to be summer, but where I am now, we've had nothing but rain for the last 2 days.
Oh, that sucks. Sorry.
So it's nice and fun, but it's what it is.
Yeah, of course. So tell me, give me your perspective. Tell me what you do with Bill. I mean, all of the above. What are you thinking here?
Bill, I think his time is done, depending whether he gets sacked or traded, whichever way, I feel like, we need to start fresh all the way through.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the overwhelming sentiment, but I think we also have to realize reality, and the reality is that the Krafts own this team. The Krafts are going to be forever indebted to Bill Belichick for, basically turning their $170 million investment into something that's worth currently $7 billion. In U.S. dollars, of course, but hey, no matter what dollar it is, that's a heck of a lot of chump change. And so, and when you have, the trophies and, you have the cachet and you have, people taking pot shots at you because, now you stink. I mean, that just tells me that you've been somewhere and you like where you've been and you're indebted to the guy who brought that to you. And that's Bill Belichick. And that's why this is not an easy decision.
All of that is so true. But at the end of the day, where does the business side of it come in for them, and where they say, right, we haven't won for the last 5 years now.
Yeah.
We want to go forward.
Yeah. No, listen, I'm with you on that one. And I think a lot of people, no matter where you are on this planet, and if you follow the Patriots at all, a lot of these people are realizing, love Bill. Very happy for Bill. God bless Bill. But it's time we got to move on because all good things do come to an end. I mean, it's just that way throughout history. So, the Roman Empire didn't last forever either. So, the Patriots Empire is fallen after 20 years. And that's just how it works nowadays. So, it shouldn't be, well, how do we keep the empire? It's like, how do we reestablish it? How do we, build it back up from the ashes that it has gone through over the last couple of years? And is Bill the guy that can be the architect to bring us back to where we were? And I would argue now that I think in a lot of ways, the best way is to come in with a fresh, new attitude and thought process in terms of building. Because look, this is all recycled stuff. Nobody's a freaking genius anymore. Okay, everybody borrows and steals and does this and does that from other people that they've worked with and worked for. Bill did that through all of his coaching influence over the years. A lot of his success he knows he owes to Bill Parcells, for that matter. So it's that way all throughout coaching. This is a very much a sport where everybody bastardizes everybody else, and I mean that in a positive sense. But every once in a while you get a genius. Every once in a while you get a trendsetter. Every once in a while you get a Mouse Davis who creates the run and shoot offense, and or you go 5 wide and you learn how to make it work in the NFL, because for years the National Football League was nothing but 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and and let's just grind it out and let's beat people 21-17, and that's the way it worked. And then of course the game has changed over the last 30 years or so with more offense, and all of a sudden people are getting smart, and they're saying, well, if we do this, why can't we do this? If we can do this, then why don't we split this guy out, and why don't we go get guys that run 4-2s and yada, yada, and it evolves. And I think lately, Jake, we've seen the game begin to evolve back toward more of a defensive standpoint. We're seeing more and more supercharged offenses really find that they have difficulty, especially if they don't have the right trigger, signal caller.
It's that thing, trying to find that fine line of a bit of column A and a bit of column B.
Yes. And so unless you got somebody who can throw those darts, you're going to struggle with some of this offense. And I think the Patriots are in this transformation right now. Mac is not the guy that they need to run it. It's unfortunate. We've seen that. But I think this year has pretty much told us a lot about that. And the question now, is Bill the guy to run it? And I listen, I know why a lot of people feel like you do. I really do. I understand it. I just don't know if that is the best way to go about it here. And I guess maybe we'll know a little bit more in about 6 weeks.
That's it. We'll cross our fingers and our toes and hope for the very best.
Yeah, I mean, that's all we can really do, right? Who's worth keeping?
We just played out.
Who's worth keeping? Who are your favorite players? Who do you feel like this team can help build on?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I mean,
definitely Stevenson.
Yeah.
Even though running backs are everywhere.
Yeah, dime a dozen,
like
right?
We should definitely have him.
Yeah, I would agree with that. No, I think Ramondre is worth keeping. I'll be honest with you. I think Ezekiel Elliott would be worth keeping. Because he's good as a change of pace guy, and and he can still show he's got a little life left in his legs. I don't think they'll re-sign him, but I think if they did, I wouldn't have an issue with it. I certainly wouldn't have an issue if they. Yeah, I wouldn't have an issue if they re-signed Hunter Henry. I wouldn't have an issue with that at all because I think he's got some talent. I think Mike Gesicki can pound sand. I think that there are some other guys on that offensive line that can pound sand. I think Onwenu is probably a guy that if they keep him out of tackle, there's a guy that could be there for you. I'm not sure Trent Brown is, but then again, if you don't,
no, I'm happy for Brown to go.
well, I think you got to keep him. I know you got him under contract, I think, for one more year. I don't have the contracts of the stats in front of me here, but yeah. I think you got to keep him.
We've got to keep him. We've got to keep him, but we'll be happy if he didn't come back.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't know. Nobody's going to lose any sleep, but I think you need to have at least somebody who's got experience playing the position and maybe draft a tackle. And I think then you work on a 3-person rotation or whatever. I think the guards will be okay. I think we all like the centers. So, I mean, I think the line is really one player away from solidifying itself somewhat. You could use, another tight end. And obviously, as far as the wide receiving core is concerned, look, I don't really care if I see any of those guys back. I really don't.
Yeah.
If they go, I wish them well, but it didn't work here. And I don't know if that's more because they don't have the talent or because the offensive scheme just is not fitting what they do. It might be both. Might be a little both. So it kind of adds to the frustration. I wrote a column earlier this week about, how, and I sort of said it halfway tongue-in-cheek and halfway in jest, that I really didn't think this Patriot team was that far away. And people are like looking at me and rolling their eyes. And I'm like, well, wait, hold on. Hear me out. They're really not that far away because when you consider what this team has done defensively, and again, I know they're not playing, championship contenders every week. But when you consider what they've done defensively without arguably their two best, maybe even inarguably, their two best players on the defensive side of the ball, they've held people down. They've held teams down. The defensive line is solid. The linebacking core is improved. Because the last couple of years, they couldn't guard me coming out of the backfield. The defensive backfield is where they have the issues right now, largely because Christian Gonzalez, I think, kind of raises everybody's game. I think he makes everybody better. But they play way too soft, and they're playing way too much zone, and that's how teams are beating them. And I can't believe that the Patriots don't realize that because they continue to play soft zone coverage, and it just stinks to high heaven. So
that's the old didn't have any McCourty replacement, and now we're trying to throw bits and pieces everywhere.
Yeah, that's right. But they really don't. We're talking about a few tweaks and a few key adds here, and you have to hope that in free agency, and I expect the Patriots to be active in free agency. They should be because they've got enough cap room to play with. Then I expect them to be active. They just have to make the right choices because when they, went into free agency a couple of years ago, other than Matt Judon, right? They're just
coming back to buying brand names and not off-shelf, off-market players.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm okay with the philosophy of trying to find underpriced, undervalued free agents, guys that play with a chip on the shoulder, because that's really how we all know, if you follow this team at all, that's how the quote-unquote Patriot way was built, on the backs of those guys. The undersized, the Teddy Bruschi's of the world is what I'm thinking of, right? And they came in and turned out spectacularly. And I think you need to, if Bill's going to be here, that's the way you got to go. If Bill's not going to be here, then I think the Crafts have to realize, what? We're going to have to open up the pocketbook, and we're going to have to go out and get some of these high-priced guys, and we're going to have to see if we can, coach them up the way that they want to be coached, which means then you got to go find the right coach for the right mentality for today's player. And I don't even know if Bill's that guy either, because this is a different player today than it was 20 years ago when he first started coaching here.
And then that's where it comes in too. 20 years ago when we had the dynasty starting, people wanted to come and play for us.
Yes.
This day and age, if Bill's still here, are people going to want to come and play for Bill, knowing that the last 4 or 5 seasons, 6 even, have been okay, average at best?
Right, I don't know. And that's a great question. You ask a very good question. And the answer to that is I don't think so. Because they're like, all right, first of all, the Patriots, stink on ice, number one. And number two, how much longer is Bill going to be here? So why would New England be considered a destination point right now? They're not. And I think that's got to be, and I'm glad you brought that up, Jake, because that's got to be a major consideration for the Krafts when they decide if Bill is still our guy. Because if you can't attract, as my grandmother used to say, if you can't attract flies with honey, all you got left is vinegar, and you're not going to attract flies.
That's a great saying.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. But it's true. If you got nothing to offer, guys, why do they want to come with you when, they might be able to get, maybe a little less money somewhere else, but they got a chance to win? See, that's my whole thing. And so that's why I was pointing out this week. I said, you know what? Okay, that's a legitimate argument, but on the defensive side of the ball, I don't think the Patriots are really all that far away. Because you put a healthy Matt Judon and a healthy Christian Gonzalez back into the fold, and if you can keep things relatively healthy where you got them right now, you're competitive. You have a top 10 defense in the NFL. You have a top 10 defense. Maybe, arguably, top 5 or 6. I think they're 8th in rush defense right now without those two guys. So, I mean, you've still got an opportunity here to be competitive. And I think, the major issues all lie on the other side of the ball and whether or not Bill is the guy that can fix those problems. What else you got, Jake?
What else? The re-signing of Will Greer to the practice squad?
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you're going to re-sign him, great. Let's see what he's got. Give him a shot. Because that's what the next 6 weeks have to be. Yeah, that's what the next 6 weeks have to be. The next 6 weeks have to be an extended summer training camp. That's what it has to be. It has to be run with that kind of a mindset.
Is he going to be our backup next year, so to speak?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
They just keep training him in the way of the Patriots to keep him here and shoo everyone else off.
Yeah, that's 100% right. And I wouldn't be surprised if Mac's not a part of it, then even though he's under contract, I think he should be kept around at least as a backup or a stopgap. But, is one of these two guys, whether it's Bailey or Cunningham or even Will Greer, one of these guys, potential to stick around as a potential backup. You're not looking at a long-term starter here. That may be more than just a year down the line, depending on where you draft and who you draft.
So many ifs and questions on which way we can go and can't go. And
Yes, sir. You are correct. Hey, I appreciate you taking the time. Whereabouts in Australia are you calling from?
I'm in Bendigo, which is about an hour and a half away from Melbourne.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Excellent. The Olympics are coming to Melbourne in the not too far distant future.
Yeah, when is that?
Yeah. That one failed to get to your outpost, huh?
Yeah.
I appreciate you, Jake. Thanks for being a fan.
Thanks for taking the call, John.
Absolutely, 100%. Don't be a stranger. Jake's in Australia. Hey, Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots, Toyota. Let's go places. And Bridgestone, the official tire of the New England Patriots, proud to partner with Sullivan Tire, New England's headquarters for quality Bridgestone tires. Visit sullivantire.com to find a location near you.
A real woman could stop you from drinking.
You have to be a real big woman.
It's time to go around the NFL with football guru Russell Baxter
Now on, your name is Flounder.
on Patriots Playbook.
Flounder?
How we doing today, Flounder?
Well, I feel a lot in my soul.
Okay. You know what? One thing I always love about you, Russell, when we talk is you've always got an answer.
Yeah.
You are never at a loss for words, which is remarkable. Good on you, brother.
It's so funny you said that because one of my favorite things that my mother ever said to me was I took her out to lunch. Just obviously a long time ago. She went back to heaven in 1998.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're out to lunch one day, and I don't even remember what it was of what I said to something she said. And she just paused and looked at me and said, "You're just compelled to make a comment, aren't you?"
Well, of course.
Yeah, but there's a message behind the madness because it is to elicit a smile.
Yeah.
It is to make someone laugh.
Yeah.
And it's never to be insulting. It is never at anyone's expense. It's a play on words. I have a lot of George Carlinism in me, playing with words and stuff. I thought he was an absolute genius.
He was, by the way.
Yeah.
I could, God rest his soul, I could listen to George Carlin do all of his routines over again almost daily. Because
he did
Yeah.
he did a spiel on airport terminology, which I know you've heard.
Mm-hmm.
And the highlight of the entire thing is when he said, and I gotta bleep myself.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "You know how they tell you to get on the plane? Get on the plane. Get on the plane.
Right.
F you, I'm getting in the plane." Then he said, "Let Evil Knievel
get on the plane." Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's very true.
But it was jumbo shrimp and all the different things he came out with. And then, he turned around and did some other acting later in his career. He did some stuff with, I think, Thomas the Train. I think he played like Mr. Conductor for them or something like that.
He did. And you know that because you have a daughter who probably watched it on television, right?
Yes.
And I have two boys who watched it on television.
Yeah, but I got to watch it. I got to watch it too.
Yeah. Oh, of course we did. Well, hey, I consider, us, we lived through the days and the wars of watching Barney, for God's sake, right? I know. Maureen, you doing that right now? Are your kids into Barney? Are you kidding? No,
never, not really. Not really. But
it's Bluey now.
Oh,
for a long time, Bluey. I felt like Selena Gomez lived with us. So
yeah, right.
A lot of the Disney Channel stuff. But Carlin, he did a funny movie, Car Wash, which was actually, I think, based on the song. And then some people remember this. He had a semi-traumatic role in The Prince of Tides with Nick Nolte and Barbra Streisand.
Yeah, you know what? I had forgotten that. You're right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, he was absolute comedic genius.
Yes,
now,
absolutely. And all based on wordplay.
Yeah, all on wordplay.
And I wonder if he knows now, God rest his soul, as you said, that a couple of his 7 words you can't say on TV, I think the list is reduced now.
Yeah, it's probably down to about 5 now, right?
Yeah.
Just because of the standards have changed, and I don't know if we progressed or regressed. I can't yet decide. I think we've probably done a little of each, right?
Well, at least we're not grunting.
Yeah,
that's one way. Although we're not far off sometimes.
Yeah. One of the few times that I remember laughing until I cried was his whole play on. I can't really say this delicately. So I probably shouldn't go there, but it was his play, his play on going to the bathroom. Do you remember that one?
No, I don't, and now I have to go dig it out.
Yeah, you're gonna have to go Google that. Yeah, go YouTube that one. Okay, go.
In my house, when I was, we saw his HBO specials when I was younger.
Yeah.
So we had Class Clam, the album that we played.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a couple of Cheech and Chong albums that we played. It was all
Cheech and Chong.
He's not here.
Those guys are in high heaven now, literally and figuratively, right now, because they're all out there selling CBD gummies, right?
Oh my God! I mean, talk about a reaper. It's like they're like the Ben and Jerry of cannabis.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Hey, how was Thanksgiving? I hope it was good for you and your family.
No, it was good. It was relaxing. It was much better than it was for me than it was like the Lions and the Commanders.
I was a little surprised by that, to be honest with you, because they're normally ultra competitive on their day, and yet, man, the Lions and the Packers game stunned me.
They've been playing with fire on defense, and then when you turn around and people look at the stat line a lot of times with quarterbacks. Oh, Jared Goff didn't throw an interception. Yeah, but he fumbled 3 times and he lost all 3, and one of them turned into a touchdown. And as you well know, the Lions defense has been playing with fire. They survived the Chargers 41-38.
Mm-hmm.
They needed 17 late points to get past the Bears, 31-26. Mm-hmm. And now they give up 29 points, albeit one of them was a defensive touchdown. But that's a lot of points to give up. And it was funny. And people like to talk about schedules and who's this and who's that and so on. Then combine what happened on Monday night in Minnesota. And the Bears and the Packers, now the Bears are further back. Green Bay is now on the heels of the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
So, but, Detroit hasn't wrapped up anything yet. They have another game with Chicago. I think they have a game with Dallas. They have 2 with Minnesota in the final 3 weeks. So, the NFC is this will really surprise you, John. I think it will. The NFC as a conference has 5 teams with winning records.
Wait a second. 5 teams? Just 5?
5 teams with winning records, and unless Seattle does something dramatic on Thursday night at Dallas, it's going to be 4. They're going to be 6-6 if they lose.
Wow.
Wow. And listen, a lot of that is obviously in their conference this year, with the AFC playing a big hand and those losing wins or non-winning. Every once in a while we see a team win the division with a losing record. The NFC South is on course to do it a second straight year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, this is the worst. I can't do it. I was going to do like a Civil War thing, the worst performance by the South. So,
okay, I can understand. Yeah.
Maybe okay. I can say maybe the league will ask the NFC South to succeed.
Yeah. Maybe they should. Yeah, I know, right? Oh goodness! All right, so let's at least we'll come back and hit the Patriots and the Chargers in a little bit. But I know that in terms of teams trying to separate themselves from pretending to contending here over the last 6 weeks of the regular season, this is a real grind for a lot of the teams that consider themselves contenders. Because they're all trying to work through, the bumps, the bruises, the aches, the pains, the attrition, next man up, all that kind of stuff. And so this is where they really do separate themselves right about this time of year. Everybody's their bye week. Everybody's playing just about every week. So, I mean, and you've got a lot of divisional matchups that are soon to come as well. Mm-hmm. And so this is the teams that are equipped are usually the ones that are ready to roll. And you've got I think the Thursday game this week, you got Seattle playing at Dallas. The Cowboys are the one team that always seems to have the talent and yet always seems to manage to underachieve at the right moment. A couple of games that I'm looking at right off the top on Sunday, the Lions have to go out on the road and prove themselves at the Saints. What else am I looking at? The Steelers just, had their comeuppance a little bit. They've got to try to go back home and defend. The Dolphins may or may not have the cakewalk everybody thinks they have, where they have to go play at Washington this week. How good are the improved Denver Broncos? And how really good are the Houston Texans? Both teams are 6-5. They're going to face off against each other. There's some intrigue this week that I think we should know a little bit more about teams that are true contenders, don't you think?
Yeah, we got in the case of Denver and Houston, you have 2 teams that finished in last place last year.
Right, and it didn't take them long to turn it around and be 6-5, mm-hmm. and that's why that's another thing that I haven't had a chance to mention today, Russell. But Patriots fans, the Patriots, believe it or not, I know things stink on ice right now. That's my phrase. I love that one. But at the same time, they may not be that far away from turning it around, and all you have to do is look at Denver and Houston.
Well, and look at the league last year.
Denver and Houston also have quarterbacks, too.
Remember, there were 4 teams last year that finished last in 2021, mm-hmm. and 4 of them, of the 8, made the playoffs.
Yep.
Okay? Baltimore, I mean, you're not used to Baltimore finishing last, but they did. The Giants finished last, came back, not only made the playoffs, but won a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
Jacksonville was dead last for a couple of years. Started 4-8 and then won the division with a 9-8 record.
Yep.
Okay, so we see this now. I don't want to say on a regular basis, okay, but it's not all that unusual. And you look at the last place teams from a year ago, okay.
Yep.
And how they're doing. Now the Jets, the Aaron Rodgers thing has cost them dearly. Cleveland is 7-4. Okay, Houston is 6-5. Denver is now 6-5. Washington is in free fall as far as I'm concerned. Chicago's improved its record. Atlanta was dead last. They are technically in first place right now. Arizona, we knew that was going to be a disaster with Kyler Murray being hurt and missing the beginning of the year. And even with him back, they beat Atlanta, but last week they got plowed by the Rams. So you have more than your fair share of teams bouncing back after last place finishes. And and by the way, the team I left out are the Seahawks. The Seahawks were last place in 2021. John, they were the only team in the division to not make the playoffs. And then last year they came back and were a wild card. So, things can happen. In fact, go back to Jacksonville for a second. So they went from last place to 4-8 to 9-8 to down 27-0 in the playoff game and then winning the playoff game.
That's nuts. That doesn't even sound like that's realistic, does it?
No, but the year before 3 last place teams did it. And again, I know I say this every show. That's why the consistency of the Patriots for 20 years and the consistency of the Chiefs right now is something that is to be admired. And you may have to start throwing Philadelphia in there.
Well, you might.
Well,
yeah, you might.
They're first time in almost 10 years, 2013 and 14, that they won at least 10 games back-to-back years. Here's the real kicker. If the Eagles hold on and win the NFC East, it's been almost like 20 years since any team in that division has repeated.
Wow. I think I saw that on a graphic somewhere where
Andy Reid led the team to 4 straight division titles from 2001 to 2004.
Okay.
No team in the NFC East has won back-to-back titles since then.
Which is remarkable.
Yeah.
That is remarkable. And, of course, the Eagles get a big test this week. Might be an NFC championship preview. The Niners go to Philly, right?
Yes, they do. And we saw what happened last year. And, Brock Purdy got hurt. The Niners seemed like they were kind of controlling the tempo of the game. It didn't go their way. It wound up being a very, very lopsided score. Philly's not blowing anybody's doors off, okay, at all, okay? But they're winning the games they have to win. Last week was another classic case of resiliency. So, having the route to beat Buffalo scores in overtime. They come down the field and win it. This is, to me, is remarkable. The Dallas Cowboys have the biggest point differential in the league this season so far. They are plus 162.
That's nuts. And they've lost 3 games.
Philly's point differential is plus 64.
Yep. Wow.
The Niners' point differential is plus 140. But they're 8-3. The Cowboys are 8-3, and Philly is 10-1.
10-1, yeah.
So, they're doing it a different way than they did a year ago.
What does history, Russell? What does history say about teams like that actually have the larger margin of victory, as opposed to teams that tend to win closer games? I mean, which side of the fence does history really stand on? Which type of team do you think is being more successful in the long haul?
Well, I don't know if it's necessary. Listen, the Giants, the 2011 Giants, I don't have to remind you of this. They had a negative point differential for the regular season. They finished 9-7, and they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Okay? More times than not, we have seen high-scoring teams get to the Super Bowl and not win, or not even get to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So you see these enormous point differentials, and you don't have to mind the Buffalo Bills. It's 2019. Okay, all you have to do is lose by 1, and it can change things dramatically. I mean, remember the Denver? Here's actually probably a better example. The Denver Broncos in 2013, remember, set a single-season record for points scored.
Okay.
Peyton Manning threw 55 touchdown passes, 5,477 yards. Those are still NFL records.
Yeah.
And all they did was lose the Super Bowl by 35 points.
Right.
Now, 2 years later, Peyton Manning doesn't even play the whole season. Their defense is off the chart. It's a totally different team. They struggle to score points. Peyton came back. I think he with his last breath in that Super Bowl, which he was relatively ineffective in the second half, and they beat the highest scoring team in the league that year, Carolina, by 2 touchdowns.
Wow. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. Hey, here's something else crazy. The Jets cleared Aaron Rodgers to return to practice today.
Well, I'll be curious. I guess they want to see what he has and what he's going to do, and I'll be curious to see if they actually wind up activating him. They have now scored 13 points or less in 5 games in a row.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, this is I'll be keeping an eye on the Dolphins the next 6 weeks. Obviously, by the way, they haven't won the division since 2008.
Right.
And every time you turn around, the other 3 teams in the division are doing their damnedest not to win any games. Buffalo, heartbreaker, okay, after they had demolished the Jets. New England's lost 4 in a row. The Jets have lost 4 in a row. This is Miami's time to shine. I know they've got some tricky ones down the stretch. They got the rematch with Buffalo. They have Dallas to play yet. I think they have Baltimore to play.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I'm almost positive to play Baltimore. Yeah, remember that game last year in Baltimore, 42-38, with Tua and Lamar Jackson and all those receivers and stuff. So, but Philly to me feels like the best team. I think Dallas and San Francisco at times are overpowering. But I also remember the Niners lost 3 games in a row.
Yep.
And and it's funny because you think about what Kyle Shanahan has done after a slow start in San Francisco. They've now gotten to the NFC title games 3 times in 4 years.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But they've gotten to 1 Super Bowl and blew a lead.
Yep.
So
what does that really mean?
What does that really mean?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, listen, people ask me on occasion and stuff about overachieving, underachieving, and so on.
Yep.
The Houston Oilers with Jerry Glanville and later Jack Pardee. I know you'll remember them, late 80s, early 90s.
I covered them, yeah.
Yeah. 7 years in a row they went to the playoffs, and 7 years in a row they couldn't even reach the AFC title game.
Right, exactly. They would always fall short.
Denver.
Yeah.
They blew the lead of all leagues in Buffalo.
Yeah.
They finally got Kansas City in their own building, and we're up 10-0, and Joe Montana and Marcus Allen pulled that game out.
Mm-hmm.
So, for all the Bills of the 90s, those late season Oilers, or late 80s, early 90s Oilers, boy, they were very talented.
Right.
And just couldn't get it done.
Right. Russell, the question that I really want to ask you today has to do with, historical figures in the NFL, having rather inglorious ends. You know where I'm kind of going with this. We've seen coaches throughout history in the NFL who are considered the greatest to have ever coached this great game that we all enjoy, that we all love. They've ended their careers poorly. With one real exception, if you just look at the numbers by itself, I come up with, well, I guess if you're considering, Bill Belichick in this group, if you're considering Tom Landry in this group, you're considering Don Shula in this group, considering maybe Vince Lombardi in this group, maybe George Halas in this group, we're looking at, this group of, I would say a half a dozen or so coaches of all time, right? And the one that seems to have fared the most, or the best, I guess, out of all this, in terms of wins and losses, probably would be Shula, even though it wasn't really, a smooth ride off into the sunset for him. How do you view that? And is Shula really the best of the bunch when it comes to considering how things end, or is this just an inevitability in the NFL when it comes to the end of a coaching circle?
Well, Shula had competitive teams at least. And and I wrote a piece on this earlier this year. This is almost unfathomable to think that the Miami Dolphins' last Super Bowl title came 50 years ago.
Yeah, that's nuts, right?
72.
Yeah, right.
And Don Shula, listen, he had competitive teams. He made some AFC championship games, won some division titles. Dan Marino had a big hand in that and so on.
But he didn't win a Super Bowl.
But he didn't. They got to the Super Bowl in '82, lost to Washington, got to the Super Bowl in '84 with one of the great years of any quarterback, Marino, and got blown out 38-16 in Palo Alto. So it just shows you got to have the complete picture. Shula is probably a good example of that. You think about Vince Lombardi. Vince Lombardi never had a losing season, so he went out on a high note. He didn't have, he won the last two titles with the Packers, then went to Washington eventually.
And didn't his health knock him out of the job in Washington initially?
I believe so, and he wasn't with it much longer after that.
Right, right. I know he died from cancer.
Chuck Noll had some competitive teams.
Yeah, Chuck Noll.
Always. Yeah. I always talk about, in fact, a year the Steelers were. Are you ready for this? They lost their first two games 92-10.
Oh, wow.
In 1989.
Wow.
And they bounced back and made the playoffs and went to Houston and beat the Oilers in overtime in a playoff game.
Yeah.
Might have been Noel's best coaching job, if you think about it. But he was gone after a couple of years. So it's hard to, you didn't bring up this guy because he's now up on the list and so on. But things looked rough for him for a couple of years, and he has rebounded great as Andy Reid.
Yeah.
His last couple of years in Philadelphia weren't so great, and they eventually got rid of him, and now he's gone to Kansas City. He's made it the playoffs every year but one. He's not had a losing season. So he might be the super exception to the rule and so on. Chuck Knox, I'm throwing some other names out there and so on. Chuck had success at his 3 stops and so on. Marty Schottenheimer. I'm thinking of the guys who've won like 200 games and so on. Dan Reeves. The funny thing is, you just don't see these long tenures anymore.
No, you don't. And I'm wondering.
Tom Landry, let's be honest. Tom Landry, the team became old and slow.
Yeah.
And they 3-13 his last year. Remember, he still holds the record as far as consecutive winning seasons for 20 years in a row.
Yeah.
From 66 to 85, but then again the wheels. I think his last 3 years in the league, he didn't make the playoffs. So
right. Yeah.
It is hard because it's probably even harder to sustain success.
Yep.
So when it finally ends, listen, I understand frustration and so on because you don't see too many 20-year runs that had this many Super Bowl appearances and this many champions. For all of the Cowboys, 66 to 85. Okay, 20 straight winning seasons, John. They only won 2 Super Bowls over that stretch.
Well, I know. Doesn't sound like enough. Doesn't sound like enough winning to me. So I don't know.
They made it on their appearance. The Patriots had a run here where they've been to the Super Bowl, 9 times and won 6 of them.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a big contrast.
Yeah.
There's being spoiled and then there's being spoiled.
Yep. True. Very true. All right, my brother. Thank you for the time today. I'm glad you had a good holiday. And you know what? We're gonna take the rest of football with open arms and try to enjoy it while we can, and look forward to the future because that's about all you can really do right now in Patriot land.
That's right. But I will say this: open arms means missed tackle.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And we know a little bit about that around here too.
Yes.
Thank you, Russell.
All right, talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Talk to you next week. Russell Baxter at Bax Football Guru on X. Okay, I'm going to end the show today with some emails I got sent in from a little earlier about our question concerning Bill Belichick off the top of the show. And it has to do with, I asked, do you keep him, do you trade him, or do you let him go? Really? Pretty basic stuff. And I wanted to at least share, some of the issues, all of it. I'm going to lead off here, though, with this one from Marvin in Kernersville, North Carolina, who says, John, George Carlin was a true genius. His greatest comment, in my opinion, was, we will find a way to solve homelessness in this country when somebody figures out how to get rich doing it. That's 100% right, by the way. I can't tell you how many times I've used that quote. It is just so true. ESPN is reporting Aaron Rodgers is cleared to start practicing again. There goes our third win of the season in Week 18. He said, thanks for all you do. Still wish you were 3 days a week like the old days. Well, I appreciate that, Marvin. Thank you. But I had to get a real job. I don't know what else to say. Got to get a real job. Sometimes that we have to do that. What else do I have here? Oh, okay. So this one comes from Keith, who says, I say keep Bill, but remove him as GM and let him coach only. Just my opinion. And I think that would almost be unanimous as an answer, right? If Bill would agree just to stay and coach and not be the GM, why wouldn't you want, arguably the greatest coach of all time still coaching your team, even if he's a little bit, behind the times? I don't know. My issue with that particular thought process is he won't accept that. I don't think he does. He's not going to give up GM. Why would he? He doesn't need it anymore. I mean, I think in theory, okay, Bill, be coach. That ain't going to happen. He's going to keep his job the way it is. He doesn't have to prove anything. There's nothing to prove. Zero to prove. I mean, if you could get him to do it and he'd agree to do it, that's a win-win. It's a win-win. I don't think that happens. Patrick in Ottawa says, John, trade him. And if that doesn't work, let him go. We need new blood and a new vision in the building. And I actually, think that is probably more prevalent for most people than you really think. Antonio, Tony from Canada. Isn't it funny how things can change quickly? Only a few years ago, we were discussing whether it was Bill or Brady that was most responsible for the Patriots dynasty, and now we're talking about whether Bill will be fired. My question is this: if the writing is on the wall regarding Bill's exit, then would it not be in the team's own best interest to let Bill go as soon as possible? This would give our team the opportunity to hire an interim coach, such as Gerard Mayo or Bill O'Brien, assess whether we want to hire a head coach within or outside of the organization. It would also give the fans a sense that the Crafts are taking control of the situation rather than letting the situation only get worse as we continue to lose each week. Lastly, it would give Belichick a chance to step away from the game and either take some time to assess his future and either retire or get back into the NFL with another team. What say you? Let Bill go and change course now, or continue to watch this ship sink? Well, if it were up to me, Tony, I'm gonna end with that one because I think that was the one that we really kind of began the show with, and I think it's the ultimate, it's the 8-ball question. It really is. And I'm not sure that there's a definitive answer for it. I think that we'll continue to get closer to that answer over the course of the last 6 weeks of the regular season here, but I don't know that we can answer it. If it were up to me right now, at this moment, if I determine that Bill is not interested in doing anything but the way that he has done things over the previous 22 years here, then I'd say you got to let him go. I see the Kraft's point of view. He's a marketable commodity. I just don't know what you're going to get, and I'm not willing to take pennies on the dollar for the greatest coach of all time. I'm not. Anything short of a first-round draft pick? No, I'm just not, and I don't think the Patriots can get that for him. I'll go on the record and say that right now. I don't think they get it for him because I think most people understand, well, the Patriots are looking probably to move on from him anyway. And I think that's almost an insult. I really do. So I think the best way to go for Bill and for the Patriots is just to cut bait and move on. If you decide you're not going to keep him, okay, I think you cut bait. I just don't see – I think in a perfect world, yeah, I'd love to get a 1 for him, wouldn't you? Like, Evan said earlier, if you get, like, say, the Chargers pick, the 15th pick of the first round, and then you take the number 3 pick overall in the 15 and get yourself a quarterback and a wide receiver, man, you're in business again, right? In theory. I don't see that scenario unfolding, but I hope I'm wrong. Okay? Thanksgiving has come and gone, and with the winter holidays now firmly in your sights, you might be realizing your house needs a holiday spruce. With Bob's Discount Furniture's unbelievable prices and flexible financing on mattresses, furniture, decor, and more, you're sure to impress your guests with comfort and style. Get the ultimate home team advantage with Bob's, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. All right, I guess that will wrap it up for the day. I appreciate your attention to the details. Thank you to Fernando Ramirez from the West Coast to talk about the Los Angeles Chargers. Chris Mason from Mass Live. Of course, Russell Baxter and Evan Lazar for joining us in the program. Marine, thank you, sir. Hoorah for everything that you do for us here on the show. St. Pat's time, St. Pat's channel next Wednesday. As we step forward, they got the Steelers on the schedule. It's a Thursday night game. In theory, we'll be doing a show on Wednesday. You haven't been told otherwise. We are, right? Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure that we're doing it the day before the game. So, okay. All right. Good. So we will be back next Wednesday to talk about the Thursday night game and another step forward or another step closer to the inevitable. Which will it be? Talk to you next week.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.